Don't you like him at all? He seems like a nice guy," Adriana asked Lisa with surprise. Adriana was a petite but spry girl, known for her quick temper. Ever since high school, she had always stood up for her friend Lisa, who was modest, quiet, and unable to defend herself. Back in the first days at school, her favourite doll was taken away from her. She was pushed and called names. Adriana saw this, went up to the girl who thought she was in charge, and snatched the doll out of her hands. "That's not yours," Adriana declared. When the insolent girl didn't want to return the doll to Lisa, Adriana pushed her with both hands so that she nearly toppled over. After returning the doll to Lisa, Adriana wiped the tears from her face. "My name is Adriana. Let's play together, and if that fool comes near us again tomorrow, I'll pull out all her hair and make her go bald." Lisa smiled, and from that moment on their true friendship was born. The girls became inseparable, always supporting each other. If Adriana didn't have time to do her homework, she knew she could rely on Lisa to help her. They shared both misfortunes and joys, keeping no secrets from each other. As time passed, the girls grew up, but Adriana remained the same, a petite red-haired girl with bangs and perfectly even dark skin. Despite her height of only 161 centimetres, she compensated by wearing high-heeled or platform shoes. When Lisa's father passed away due to a congenital heart defect, Adriana shared her friend's grief. Lisa was only 15 years old at the time. "He wanted to say something to me before he died," she recounted. "He was lying in the hospital and called out to me, but my mother tried to hold me back. I don't know why he called me, and when I approached, he didn't have time to say anything. The doctors told us that there was no chance, but it was impossible to believe it. He was there, and then he was gone." Adriana loved her friend like a sister and supported her through the grief. And soon Lisa's mother found another man and remarried. The stepfather was not violent or dangerous. He never harmed Lisa. He was simply unremarkable. Sometimes he acted like a silly teenager and made stupid jokes. Adriana couldn't stand him, but Lisa didn't mind. In the evenings, Lisa's mother and her new husband would drink, and Lisa would run away from home because she didn't want to see what her seemingly intelligent and well-mannered mother was turning into with this man. Adriana always felt a little jealous of Lisa. She was taller, had a good figure, and long blonde hair up to her waist. When she let her hair down, she instantly became the most charming girl in the neighbourhood. Adriana felt a little odd creature next to her. Additionally, Lisa had prominent facial features and looked even good without makeup, while Adriana didn't feel comfortable without it. When the final bell at school rang, both girls had not yet decided where to enroll. It was a fun and carefree time. Adriana's parents were wealthy, while Lisa's mother worked as a nurse at the hospital and her stepfather worked part-time as a plumber. Lisa performed well at school, while Adriana got mostly C's, showing little interest in her studies. Her mind was occupied by boys, specifically one boy named Carl, but he ironically liked Lisa, which caused some resentment between her and Lisa. "Why didn't you tell me earlier that you liked him?" Lisa wondered. "Because you can date him if you like, I don't care," Adriana replied. Lisa shook her head, and the next day she approached Carl with Adriana by her side and said, "I'm sorry, but you're not my type. I appreciate your note, but there won't be anything between us, not even friendship." Lisa left, leaving Adriana alone with Carl. It was a real opportunity for Adriana. She consoled Carl, and they even dated for a while. However, Adriana quickly grew bored, and she ended the relationship. This allowed them to maintain their friendship and not let Carl ruin it. As autumn approached, both girls enrolled at the local college. Adriana decided to become a teacher, while Lisa aspired to be a lawyer. Adriana's parents did not require financial stability and allowed their daughter to choose her own profession. On the other hand, Lisa's parents insisted she pursue a law degree. believing this field had better prospects. As a result, the girls ended up in different departments of the same educational institution. They graduated from their first course, spent the entire summer enjoying carefree fun, going out at night and working part-time during the day. For Lisa, it was a necessity, and Adriana didn't want to sit at home all day and joined her friend in working as well. They worked as waitresses, taking shifts. If their shift was during the day, they could go to the club in the evening, and if it was at night, they rested during the day and worked at night. They would wear uniforms when serving banquets, but sometimes they would also participate in parties at the cafe. Adriana, when she drank, loved to dance on the table. Her figure allowed her to do so, and she moved with great skill. However, Lisa was more modest and couldn't perform such feats. She envied her friend's freedom in that respect. Now, as the school year began again, the girls had to leave their jobs and focus on their studies. One day, tired from their academic pursuits, they wandered through the park. "No, he's not my type at all," Lisa exclaimed. One of her classmates had complimented her, and Adriana was already planning their wedding, but Lisa had no interest in dating. "Well, take a closer look. It's time to focus on your personal life," Adriana advised. "I took a closer look a year ago. There is no spark between us, so I'm not going to take a close look. That's it," Lisa answered firmly, and Adriana sighed sadly. Suddenly a woman caught their attention. She was middle-aged, blonde-haired, and dressed in gypsy-like clothes. "Can I tell your fortunes, lovelies?" she asked with a smile, approaching the girls. Adriana was willing to pay for her services and stepped forward, but Lisa stopped her. She had a fear of gypsies, fortune-telling, and anything related to magic. "No," Lisa whispered. The idea of fortune-telling scared her. "Come on, let's find out whether you'll marry Ben or not. It'll be fun. Lisa, don't be a coward." The last remark hurt Lisa's ego. She sighed and followed her friend, clutching the last bill in her pocket. Adriana was first. They knew the rules. Payment was required for the divination. Adriana handed over the money, but the fortune-teller said, "Wait, I'll tell your fortune first, and then you can pay as much as you see fit. Give me your hand, and let's take a look at you." The fortune-teller examined Adriana's hand for a while before delivering her prediction. "You won't be getting married anytime soon. It will take several more years. You will go through a lot and lose half your life, but it will come back to you," the fortune-teller said, looking at Adriana. Adriana stopped giggling and turned pale. The fortune-teller continued, "Also, be wary of a man with different-coloured eyes. He will have bad intentions and will ruin you. Run away from him as fast as you can. If you don't listen to me, you will be lost." The fortune-teller spoke with seriousness, but Adriana withdrew her hand. "I won't pay you anything. This is nonsense. Get out of here." Adriana was about to pull Lisa after her, but Lisa insisted on getting her fortune told as well. "Wait, I want a fortune-telling too," she said. Lisa didn't know why she did it. This woman scared her, but for some reason she believed her. It felt like the fortune-teller wasn't just saying what the client wanted to hear. There was something eerily real about it. Lisa extended her hand and the woman began to examine her palm. "You need to be cautious of a man who will ask about the time. If you answer his question, 'What time is it?' you'll suffer for it. And I mean it seriously. This man is dangerous." Lisa pulled her hand back. "But there's something else I can tell you. I haven't seen everything yet," the fortune-teller said. "Thank you, that's enough. Here, take it," Lisa startled, holding out the last money out of her pocket. The girls left hurriedly. It was getting dark outside. The sky covered with grey clouds, and rain was beginning to fall. "It's all nonsense. How can a person have different eyes?" Adriana asked. "I've heard something like it, It happens that way, it's genetic, Lisa answered. But how can she see a person with different eyes on my hand? That's delusional. I thought she could see the length of a lifeline, illnesses of all sorts, or a wedding, but not a person with different eyes. That fortune teller must have been high, and she didn't give you a normal prediction as well. Lisa shrugged. I don't really believe in that sort of thing, she admitted. Neither do I. The girls rounded the corner and immediately bumped into 3 big guys. They looked at them and smiled. "Oh, beauties, we've been waiting for you. What's up, college girls? By the way, what time is it? It's probably too late to walk alone." Adriana was scared. She was brave when defending herself against bullies at school, but these were grown men, and one of them had a knife in his hand. "It's 8:30. I'm sorry, we have to go," Lisa said firmly. Suddenly, the fortune teller's words about not telling the time came to her mind, but that was the least of her problems at that moment. The men didn't let them pass. "What do you want? I'll give everything I have if you let us go," Adriana said in a trembling voice. "Of course you will, and not just your things," chuckled one of the attackers. He grabbed Adriana by the hair, and at that moment Lisa struck him in the face with all her might, using the metal watch she had taken from her hand. The guy squealed and let go of Adriana. She rushed away without a backward glance. "Adriana!" Lisa shouted, but she was already being held by 2 men. She realized she couldn't do it alone, and her friend didn't even turn around. "She'll call the police. I just need to stall for time," ran through Lisa's mind. She tried to engage the guys in dialogue, but they were too drunk and embittered for that. "Now you're going to work it off for her." The 2 guys started throwing her at each other, trying to rip her clothes off. Lisa squealed, begging them not to touch her. She didn't have any money with her, nor did she have any expensive things. What else could she offer her attackers? The guy she'd dinged with her watch was standing off to the side, swearing and trying to stop his nose from bleeding. He was the one with the knife. He returned to the others when Lisa was left, wearing only her jeans and the thin tank top she wore under her sweaters to keep warm. "You broke my nose. Take that!" he shouted, and stabbed Lisa right in her cheek. She fell to the ground, and immediately blood spilled across the pavement. "What have you done? Have you killed her?" One of the hooligans was terrified. Lisa didn't get up again. The blood kept flowing. Finally, she came to her senses. There was no one nearby. She clasped her hand over the wound that stretched from her cheek to her neck. It had cut her neck so it was bleeding. Lisa pressed down on the wound. She started calling for help, but no one was there. "Adriana! Adriana, help!" she shouted. Finally, an unfamiliar man in his 40s ran up to her. "What happened to you?" he asked. "I was attacked. The blood won't stop," Lisa whispered, ready to collapse without feeling again. A woman appeared next to the stranger. Apparently she was his wife, because the man pulled the handkerchief off her head and pressed it firmly against Lisa's wound. By the time the ambulance arrived, the bleeding had almost stopped. The doctors put Lisa in the intensive care unit, and she spent a few days there due to the significant loss of blood. When she was transferred to a regular ward, the girl finally managed to call Adriana. She didn't want to scare her parents, so she decided to keep silent about the incident. Adriana didn't answer the phone right away. "Hi, how are you?" came through the receiver. "How am I? You ran away, leaving me there alone. Do you know what they did to me for freeing you from that freak? He scarred me all over my face. I almost bled to death on the spot. 5 millimeters to the side, and I would have died. I've been in intensive care the whole time. How could you just run away?" "I'm sorry. I was scared. You would have done the same thing if you were me. They wanted us. They didn't do anything to you, did they?" Adriana asked, embarrassed. They didn't. Not with your prayers. Lisa hung up the phone. Soon she was discharged from the hospital and she went to the dormitory. Sadly, there was now a huge scar across her face. The doctors informed her that it would be very difficult to remove such damage. Good plastic surgery was needed, but it would come with a hefty price. Upon seeing Lisa, Adriana rushed to hug her, but her friend pushed her away, saying, "Don't come near me again." The first thing Lisa did was approach the dormitory head and tell her everything. Despite the lack of available rooms, the head understood the situation and assigned Lisa a different room with a new roommate. It was clear that she could no longer stay with Adriana in one room. Lisa never disclosed the incident to anyone else. However, everyone knew she had been attacked, and it seemed that the details had spread through the head of the dormitory. A few days later, Adriana approached Lisa again, accusing her. "Aren't you ashamed to tell everyone how brave you are and how bad I am? Will you stop gossiping?" "I didn't say anything to anyone except Mrs. White, and you're a really trashy friend, so there's nothing I can do to help you with that." Lisa pushed Adriana's shoulder and walked past her. In anger, Adriana pushed Lisa with great force, causing her to fall to the floor. "I may be trashy, but you're ugly," Adriana shouted before walking away. Their friendship came to an end, and they each went their separate ways, facing great difficulties. Lisa struggled emotionally without her friend, missing her presence. However, reconciliation was impossible after what had transpired. She began to feel hideous, as everyone looked at her scar with fear and disgust. As a result, Lisa never dated anyone and felt completely alone. Her prediction came true on the same day as the incident. The fortune teller had warned her. Perhaps if she hadn't glanced at her watch, she wouldn't have thought to hit someone with it. But it happened, just as predicted. Adriana also missed her friend terribly, feeling guilty and angry. She believed Lisa had been spreading gossip about what had happened. Adriana quickly found a boyfriend, and the two girls didn't see each other until graduation. Lisa started wearing dark glasses with large lenses to partially cover her scar. She let her hair down to try to conceal it as best as she could. Those guys were eventually caught, and the police discovered that they had robbed several more people. Lisa participated in a lineup and provided testimony, resulting in their sentences. The one with the knife received a particularly severe punishment. The guilty were held accountable. On graduation day, Lisa walked down the street in a beautiful dress, with her hair pulled up. She liked this hairstyle, despite it exposing the ugly scar across her face. While walking through the same park, she spotted the fortune teller in her gypsy outfit and approached her. "Do you remember me?" Lisa asked. The fortune teller sadly gazed at her scar and replied, "I remember, my dear. I remember. Your prediction came true on the same day, and now I have this scar." The fortune teller then asked about Adriana. "What about your friend? Has she met someone of a different eye?" "I don't know. She left me alone that day. She betrayed me. I'll never forgive her." "You will, sweetheart. I saw that your paths would diverge, but they will meet again. Don't be sad. You can't remove that scar from your face." "There's nothing I can do about it. I've never had enough money for surgery. For the past 2 years, I felt like an outcast. Everyone stares at me with disdain. Who would marry me? Who would want me looking like this? Ugly." Lisa shook her head. The fortune teller sympathetically pressed her lips and said, "We'll think of something, my dear. Even though I didn't see your palm, I caught a glimpse of a long and happy life on it. You will go through turning points and hardships, which are necessary for personal growth and positive change. You have the power to improve your life. You know I'll help you." 5 years passed. In a spacious apartment, Adriana stood in front of the mirror in her wedding dress. Her makeup and hair were already done. As she admired herself, the only thing that bothered her was not being able to find higher heels. Her short stature was still a sore point, especially when standing next to Dave, a tall, blonde, fair-skinned man. Dave, 4 years older than Adriana, was a promising and wealthy businessman. His parents lived abroad, and he had his own business, in addition to the family's company. Adriana fell in love with him at first sight. They met at one of the parties for the city's upper class, attended by Adriana's parents. Adriana's mother and father also appreciated Dave. He shared stories about his father's company and his mother's dedication to environmental causes, particularly the fight to clean up the oceans. Dave was an eloquent speaker, but what Adriana valued most was his kindness. Dave was a man of traditional values. He never pressured her for intimacy unless she wanted it. He showed care and compassion towards animals and nature, and often spoke about sponsoring clinics for sick children. Adriana couldn't help but shed tears when Dave shared stories from these clinics. Dave had no intention of rushing the relationship and was acting like a teenager in love. One day they rode the Ferris wheel. The lights of the city at night were intoxicating and mesmerizing. Suddenly, Dave took Adriana's hand and said, "I want to spend my whole life with you. Every minute of it. I adore you. Be my wife and the mother of my children. I love you so much." Adriana was over the moon. This was accurately what she had dreamed of her whole life. Dave was the man she had envisioned, tall, blonde and handsome, and her parents were happy too. They were worried that their daughter would bring home a ragamuffin, but Dave seemed to be a reliable young man. Happy Adriana forgot about everything else in the world. She was already working as a teacher at a prestigious high school, just as she had always dreamed. When Dave saw his beautiful Adriana at the wedding ceremony, he almost moved to tears. The woman gazed into his blue eyes and melted with tenderness. "I wish your parents were here. I would really like to meet them," she whispered to him. After the ceremony, Dave arranged a video chat with his parents to introduce Adriana to them. They had lived in Italy for so long that they didn't speak English fluently anymore. Dave adored his mum and called her often. Surprisingly, she welcomed Adriana with open arms and invited them to visit. They decided to start their honeymoon in Italy, but then Dave encountered some business difficulties. He said they could go somewhere nearby for a couple of days. Adriana was disappointed. "Now I have to invest a lot in the company to cut off the competition's oxygen," complained Dave. "Money isn't a problem, you know that," Adriana replied. "I know. It's not a problem for me either. It's just, I'm needed here. I have to be present all the time, otherwise the competitors can ruin everything. They could bribe my employees and manipulate things. I, personally, review every contract and every signature. I don't trust anyone. It's a critical time." Adriana nodded understandingly. "But we'll still go on a honeymoon after the wedding, right?" "Of course. Just for a couple of days, okay? I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you later. Once things settle down, I can take a break from the company for at least a couple of weeks. We'll go to Paris and Rome. I want to take 1,000,000 pictures with you. We'll see the whole world," said Dave. After the wedding ceremony at a private club that was often rented by wealthy people for events, the feast began. It was incredibly beautiful there, and they could even fly in a hot air balloon. Suddenly, a mysterious figure in a beautiful vintage mask and ball gown appeared among the guests. "Adriana, this is a fortune teller. They say she works miracles. She reads palms. Go, see her," whispered Mum. Adriana's mother was also petite and slender. She wore a marvellous dress made out of costly, shiny fabric. Adriana turned around and saw a lady in a mask. She remembered how she and Lisa had once gone to a fortune-teller, but the fortune-teller turned out to be a charlatan. None of Adriana's predictions came true. She had never met a person with different-coloured eyes in her life. Dave's eyes were a deep blue. The fortune-teller, dressed as a girl from the last century, with a carved masquerade mask on her face, took a step towards Adriana. "Don't be afraid, come on," Dave encouraged Adriana. The newlywed timidly held out her hand. "Don't be offended. I don't believe in you," she said. The fortune-teller began to examine her palm. "Well, will my daughter be happy with her new husband?" Adriana's mum asked, smiling. "I cannot say," replied the fortune-teller, "but I see that you should be aware of a man with different-coloured eyes. He will ruin you," she warned Adriana. Adriana recoiled, turning pale. "What nonsense is this?" She shrugged it off and went on, while another tipsy relative approached the fortune-teller. The fortune-teller looked at his hand, made several predictions, and guessed that he was the only child in his family, and that he had recently experienced a loss. The man was amazed. He generously paid for the predictions. Other guests approached the fortune-teller, and then she seemed to vanish. Meanwhile, Adriana was troubled by her words. She intended to find and unmask the woman she believed was hiding beneath it. In her opinion, she was the same blonde-haired woman she had encountered long ago with Lisa. However, Adriana realized too late and couldn't locate her. Meanwhile, the fortune-teller, discreetly concealing money under her clothes, hurriedly turned the corner of the nearest building and leaned against the brick wall. She removed her mask, revealing an ugly scar that stretched across her cheek and ended at her neck. Lisa gazed up at the sky and whispered, "After all these years, I've encountered her again. Why?" Lisa never expected to see Adriana again, as they belonged to different social circles. They socialized in different circles. Lisa got a law degree and got a job in social welfare, where she helped poor people in difficult situations. The job was mentally challenging, but Lisa recognized its significance. With her education, she could have worked for another organization with higher salary, but Lisa deliberately chose this place. Dolores, the fortune-teller she had encountered 5 years ago, continued to have an impact on her life. Lisa eventually moved into Dolores's small apartment. Her own parents had succumbed to alcoholism, making it impossible to live with them. Lisa and Dolores became close friends and shared a deep bond. The fortune-teller loved Lisa as if she were her own daughter and shared her knowledge of chiromancy. Dolores was the daughter of a carpenter and a witch doctor. Her parents resided in a village where Dolores grew up. Their family had several peculiarities passed down through generations. Firstly, the birth of a girl in their family was considered unusual, as they primarily had male offspring. Dolores herself had 4 elder brothers. Her mother also bestowed upon her the gift of healing and taught her how to read palms. These were only fundamentals. Dolores's mother believed that her daughter would continue their work in the village, healing people. However, Dolores became captivated by chiromancy. She pursued a degree in ornithology, but chose not to work in that field. By the time she obtained her diploma, Dolores was already well versed in chiromancy, having read numerous books, compared observations, and begun practicing. When official bodies became interested in her abilities, she feigned ignorance, claiming to have merely studied psychology, and accused others of being fooled by her manipulations, asserting that coincidences were either accidental or based on her understanding of human nature and simple observation. Dolores's personal life had its challenges. At the age of 16, she committed a grave sin. She gave birth to a daughter, but left her in an orphanage, signing a refusal. The child was conceived with a man she loved. On the day she announced him her pregnancy, he said that he was married. Dolores's mother sent her to live with her aunt in the distant village. Dolores's aunt instilled in her the belief that giving the child to a couple unable to conceive was a noble deed. Dolores was still naive and foolish and succumbed to her aunt's notions. Afterward, when she grew up, she relentlessly tried to find her daughter, but to no avail. Dolores's father believed that girls in their family were true miracles and insisted that giving the baby away was inconceivable. On the other hand, her mother feared that having a baby would burden Dolores's life and restrict her future. She worried that Dolores would never marry if she kept the child. However, after studying her own palm, Dolores realized one simple truth. She would not marry until she found her daughter. The lines on her hand revealed this to her. She studied those lines, learning all about her destiny, and accepted it resignedly. When Lisa entered her life, she reminded Dolores of her daughter. Sometimes Dolores even imagined that Lisa was her lost little girl, except that Lisa had her own parents and was an exact replica of her late father. Although Dolores sensed a motherly bond with Lisa, their relationship was more akin to friendship. When it was time for her to leave the dormitory, Dolores invited Lisa to stay at her place, and she agreed. To raise money for the plastic operation, Lisa asked Dolores to teach her chiromancy. "I don't just make things up," Dolores explained with a smile. "I can genuinely see destinies in the palms of people's hands. Some people accuse me of lying, and there are instances when it's difficult or nearly impossible to read someone's palm. I don't know why. A well-known chiromancer suggested that certain destinies are meant to remain hidden. It's necessary, but for what purpose is unknown. However, most palms are open to interpretation. It's not just knowledge. You must also possess the gift. Without it, you won't see anything." Dolores began teaching Lisa, who surprisingly caught on quickly. The two of them practiced together, and Lisa was able to see things on Dolores's palm that she herself had not been able to see. "I see water trauma, and very soon," Lisa said. "You're reading the wrong signs, I told you. They need to be memorized, and as well as possible." Lisa shook her head. "Look, I'm sure of it." Dolores pressed her lips together unhappily and looked at her own palm, which she had studied millions of times. "This mark wasn't there before?" she exclaimed, startled. "I told you so," said Lisa with pride in her voice. "Lisa, you have a gift. You read everything correctly. I hope you won't leave me now. It looks like I'm going to need treatment and help soon." Lisa shook her head. "Of course I won't leave you. Don't be afraid. Your lifeline isn't interrupted. Everything will be all right. You can see for yourself." Dolores nodded, but she realized that she was in for a serious test. Soon she caught a cold, and she waited with dread for the consequences of the illness. But there were none. Engaged in chiromancy, Dolores had a permanent place of work. She sold tickets to the movie during the day and went to the park in the evenings. That's how she lived. When Dolores had already recovered from the cold, she was walking home from work and slipped. She fell so sharply and unexpectedly that it turned out that she had fractured her femur. She had to undergo surgery, so she was bedridden for a long time, and Lisa took care of her. Meanwhile, Lisa wasn't at Adriana's wedding by chance. She was invited to work as entertainment for the guests. Lisa dressed beautifully, her mask cleverly disguising her face and scar. She knew how to speak with the right intonation so that a person would feel and believe her. Dolores had taught her that too. Meanwhile, the wedding was in full swing. Adriana withdrew from the crowd and sat alone, pensively going over the hem of her wedding dress. "Oh, I'm looking for her everywhere and she's sitting here sad." Dave appeared behind her. "I'm sorry. It was the fortune teller who pissed me off. I don't like fortune tellers." "If I had known in advance, I would have asked to take her from the program, but I meant well. I was told there's a woman who comes in a beautiful dress at the event, entertaining the guests by giving amazingly accurate predictions. A charlatan, of course, and nothing to speak of." "What did she tell you?" Adriana looked at Dave. He did not hear the prediction, and she did not want to tell, especially because the story went back deep into the past, where Adriana had behaved ugly. She was ashamed of it and did not want to tell, let alone remember. A lot of nonsense. She works in such a field and doesn't realize that on such a day she shouldn't say anything bad. She spoiled the whole holiday, Adriana said, offended. Dave came closer and kissed her. "I know how to fix everything. Tonight I'll give you the most unforgettable night of your life. Do you want to run away from here?" he suggested. Adriana nodded. She remembered how happy she was and put all this nonsense out of her mind. They spent an unforgettable night in the honeymoon suite. Everything there was of the highest order. Champagne, strawberries, and a bed the size of a small apartment. In the morning, Adriana woke up all alone. She realized that her husband was taking a shower and hurried to join him. She playfully came into the bathroom, but Dave was not in the shower. He was standing at the sink. "Damn it, I can't do it myself," he scolded, looking at himself in the mirror. "What's wrong?" asked Adriana. "A contact lens fell out and I can't put another one in. I've always used a different brand, but those lenses stopped producing." Adriana came over and turned his head toward her. Dave looked at her, and she saw that one of his eyes was green-brown and the other pale blue. Adriana started to back away. "What is it that scares you? It's not contagious, don't worry. It's just heterochromia. I wear lenses for my eyesight, but I always wear one to correct the colour too. So there are fewer questions. I've had it since I was a kid." Adriana looked at him as if he had performed Harry-Kiri before her eyes. She was scared, but she needed to pull herself together. "I'm sorry, I just didn't know. Why haven't you told me before?" "Well, we haven't known each other that long, to be honest. I guess there are many things I don't know about you, too." He walked over and hugged Adriana. The woman hugged him back and even managed to squeeze out a smile, almost a real one. Then she walked her husband to work and immediately called the wedding planners. "I need your fortune teller. Tell her that one of the guests became interested and promised to pay a lot if she would look at her hand, and we need to meet today." Lisa, of course, accepted the offer. If she had known who wanted to meet her, she would have definitely refused. But she suspected nothing and went to the hotel room Adriana had rented. She was wearing her usual work uniform, a mask and a dress. "Good afternoon," she greeted. Adriana emerged from the other room. Upon seeing her, Lisa began to stagger backward. "I knew you would come. You were the one who made me the prediction years ago, weren't you?" Adriana boldly approached Lisa and removed her mask. She had expected to see anyone, but not Lisa. Shocked, Adriana started to stagger backwards. "Is it really you? Are you a fortune teller? How? Why?" Lisa realized she couldn't avoid the conversation and sat in the armchair. Adriana slowly sat down on the bed across from her. "That fortune teller taught me her skill. It's chiromancy, a little psychology. I didn't know it was your wedding, I'm sorry." Adriana stared into her former friend's face. Tears welled up in her eyes. She didn't realize how much she missed Lisa, because she was like family to her, like her little sister. "Did you say that on purpose to upset me?" Adriana asked with hope. "Predictions have to come true. I'm not as good as Dolores, but I also saw trouble on your hand from a man with different eyes. Did you find your different-eyed man?" Adriana nodded. "And who is it?" Lisa asked. "That's my husband. I just found out this morning that he wears contact lenses. I need to go see that fortune teller. No offense, but I have a hard time believing in your fortune-telling abilities." Lisa shrugged and took Adriana's hand without permission. Adriana didn't resist. "You've experienced trauma. You've been alone for a long time, just like before. You have a lot of money, and someone else to you is seriously ill. But he's not going to die." "Who is he?" Lisa asked. Adriana swallowed, shocked. Daddy is suspected of something. He's sick. They're currently deciding if it's possible to perform an operation. Lisa looked Adriana in the eye. I don't see the funeral. I need to have his hand checked, of course, but yours looks fine, except for the man with the different eyes. You haven't deviated from that path yet, and you could get hurt. It's a matter of life and death, Adriana. Lisa's words didn't convince Adriana, so they went to Dolores's house. Dolores was at home and opened the door with crutches. Hello, and come in. Dolores smiled, unsurprised. 10 minutes later, she confirmed that Adriana's arm had all the things Lisa had mentioned. Adriana was shocked. When the conversation was over and it was time to leave, she turned around in the doorway. I missed you so much, she admitted. Lisa sighed. The anger was long gone. And I missed you too. Take care of yourself and come if you need to. You know where I live. May I write down your phone number? Adriana asked. Yes, of course. Lisa dictated the number, and Adriana left. The feelings were mixed. Lisa didn't know how to take it. Such a friendship is hard to destroy. It can withstand both insults and separation. You have a friendship of souls, not minds, so you will keep coming back to each other, Dolores concluded. Lisa smiled at her and changed the topic. Do you want me to make some soup? Of course, I'll help, answered Dolores, and they went to the kitchen. Meanwhile, Adriana went to her father's study and told him the whole story. So, that's why you stopped being friends. Your mum and I were puzzled over it. It wasn't nice that you did, but I don't blame you, my dear. I'm going to check up on Dave. Actually, I've already checked him out. I couldn't help but do it, but I try to be more careful. Now he will be fully checked. Meanwhile, you go home. I don't think he's a maniac. At most, a con man. I don't believe in predictions, but it's worth checking. Lisa's father was pale, sickly, but he hadn't given up on business. By the way, Lisa said they saw your ailments on my hand and said you'll survive. You'll be fine, Daddy. Adriana's father smiled. Well, that's great. Of course he didn't believe it, but her words were a great encouragement. That evening, Adriana was alone with her husband. He tried to be affectionate and cheer her up, but she couldn't help herself. Now she was afraid of her own husband. She had believed the fortune-teller. Lisa's prediction quickly came true, and she claimed to have seen the same thing on her palm. When night fell, Dave began to kiss her, but Adriana refused him. He reacted violently. What's wrong? You weren't like this yesterday, and I was preparing a surprise for you. Adriana raised her eyebrows and asked, What kind of surprise? A boat trip. I rented a boat just for us. Adriana shook her head and replied, I get seasick. We can set sail tomorrow morning, and don't lie about being seasick. I specifically asked your parents about it. Adriana, what's going on? I am upset with that fortune-teller. I met her today. You know, she said that I was going to get sick and die. Adriana lied. Dave reached out his hands to her and said, Silly girl, come to me. Come. I won't touch you. Let's just lie together. Adriana went to her husband and hugged him. She remembered all those old feelings and held on to him tightly. However, the fear still wouldn't let her go. She had become his wife, and that's probably all he needs if he's a marriage scammer. In the morning, as soon as Adriana woke up, he started persuading her to go on this trip. How about tomorrow? She suggested. No, come on. It's like you've been replaced. I'm not accepting no for an answer. Pack your things. Am I your husband or not, after all? He jokingly asked. Adriana nodded and went to the bathroom, where she sent Lisa a message. Soon, Dave knocked on the door. You've been in there a long time. Is everything okay? He asked. I'm getting ready. Give me a minute, she shouted through the door. She came out of the bathroom and looked at him fearfully. He understood everything just from that look. Adriana walked past him and he went into the bathroom. A minute later, he came out with her cell phone. "Come over soon. You were right. My husband wants to kill me?" he questioned, reading the text from her phone. Adriana started to back away from him, and Dave staggered after her. "What is it, Adriana?" She shook her head. "Stay away from me." Dave stood still, crossing his arms over his chest. "Please, explain how you found out." "I went to great lengths to clean up my background so that no one would bother me. I assumed another man's identity, even forged a passport. Dave supposedly died of a drug overdose in Bali 2 years ago. Thanks to me and Photoshop, his friends and family still believe he's alive. The truth is, nobody really cares about him. All that matters is money, not a person's true worth." Adriana started to back away in terror, exclaiming, "I'll scream!" "You can scream all you want, but no one will hear you. You're going with me anyway. I've planned a glamorous death for you. You'll drown in the water. Isn't that marvellous? After all, you'll simply return to your natural habitat." Adriana gathered her courage and attempted to dash past him towards the door, but he caught her and threw her back. She began to scream, and that's when she was struck on the head. When she woke up, she found herself on a boat. The sea breeze tousled her hair, and the sound of the engine brought her back to her senses. Her head throbbed with pain. The wound on her temple was incredibly tender. She glanced around, struggling to make out the faint outline of the shore. "Are you awake? I was beginning to think I'd have to throw you in the water. Now you can scream. No one can help you." "Well, scream!" Dave laughed. "Why do you want to do that?" "Because of money, of course, stupid rich girl." He laughed in her face and stopped the boat. Adriana tensed up. "According to my plan, it will take a while for you to be found. Your mum said you were a good swimmer, but I read on the internet about how much a person can swim against the current. As you can see, it's low tide today and the waves will work against you. I took the distance as a margin, more than a normal person can swim." Adriana cried. There was only water around, just water and nothing else. "Don't, please! I'll sign everything over to you. I'll give you the money myself, as much as you want. Please don't." Dave ran his hand over her cheek. "Jump! Otherwise I won't be able to resist and hit you for the last time. Then the sharks will find you still alive. People say it hurts." Adriana was crying. She turned her back to him, and he pushed her off the boat with his foot. Adriana found herself in the water, her head aching and feeling dizzy, with the waves lapping at her. She waited for Dave to start the boat and leave, and then swam after him. She realized that she would never make it to the shore, but she didn't panic. She knew she just had to do her job, and that was it. Adriana was determined to survive, but nevertheless, after an hour, she gave in to desperation. There was still no shore in sight. Was she going the right way? Adriana lay down on the water to rest, but the waves drowned her. She started crying. Lisa received her message and immediately took a cab to Adriana's house. As she pulled up, she saw Dave put something wrapped in a sheet in the back seat and get in the car. "Slow down, don't get too close," Lisa asked the driver. The driver was startled. "What the hell is that?" he asked. "We have to go after that car. My friend is there," said Lisa. She followed Dave, but the cab got caught in traffic. She paid, ran out, and followed on foot. When she reached the marina, his boat had already left. "Help! I need help, please!" she pleaded with the fisherman. "Well, how much money do you have?" the fisherman asked. Lisa pulled out some money from her pocket. The man laughed out loud. "I wouldn't even give you a life preserver for that money." She was desperate. Time passed, but no one would help her. She paced the shore until she found an empty boat. A man had just gotten off it and was heading for his car. He must have forgotten something to take. Lisa jumped in his boat, quickly figured out how to start the engine, and sped away in the direction she thought Dave had come to. Soon, the Coast Guard rushed after her. Lisa picked up the pace. The shore was long gone, but she was being pursued. Finally ahead, a small dot on the water appeared. Lisa realized, "It's Adriana." As she got closer, she laughed happily. "Alive!" Lisa stopped the boat and helped her friend onto it. They hugged each other. Adriana was crying. "How dare you? You don't know how to swim, do you?" Adriana reproached her friend after calming down a little. "You wrote that you were in trouble, and we swore as children that we wouldn't leave each other. I can't break our vow," Lisa answered. "But I did break it. I left you." Adriana ran her hand over her friend's scar. "You were scared. That's in the past. Let's forget it. I forgave you long ago. You're not the one who attacked me. Let's get out." That's when the Coast Guard caught up with them, and Adriana described everything to them in detail. When the women returned to the shore, Adriana's father was waiting for them. He embraced his daughter and hugged Lisa, spilling out words of gratitude. "I found out that Dave is actually a con man with a long history. His real name is Marcus Palmer, and he's wanted as a criminal in 2 countries. Thank God you're alive." Adriana's father took them home. He was afraid to leave his daughter alone until Dave was caught. At home, Lisa asked him to show her his palm. "I don't believe in all this," the man said. "I didn't believe it either. If it weren't for this prediction, I'd be feeding sharks by now," Adriana shouted from the kitchen. Lisa looked at the lines on his hand. "You're going to be fine. Your illness isn't fatal and you'll be fine. It's not what they think. You need to get a thorough checkup, not go under the knife. Go to another clinic," Lisa advised. The man promised to change doctors. Toward evening, the police reported that Dave had been detained at the airport. He had no wealthy parents. His mother and father had long ago lost contact with him. They were simple school teachers, and their son had grown up to be a con artist. He was immediately put in a cell where he would await trial. Adriana and Lisa didn't want to separate that evening. "Why don't you visit Dolores and me?" Lisa asked. "No, I can't. I promised Daddy I'd be with him today. You know, it's a bit of a shame to file for divorce 3 days after the wedding." "Then you can stay his wife," joked Lisa. Adriana shook her head and hugged her friend. "I missed you so much." Lisa returned home and told everything to Dolores, who was overjoyed. "You saw that symbol on your hand, didn't you?" she asked. "I saw it, but I doubt if it is possible," Lisa replied. "You must reunite with your family. I have one on my arm too. I've known for a long time that I would meet my daughter. You know, I even thought it was Adriana. The symbol began to manifest when she showed up on our doorstep." Lisa understood that she should get closer to her family too, but she hadn't gotten along with her parents for a long time. In their family, only her father understood her, loved her, but he had long been gone. Her mother frankly did not care about her and didn't even remember about her existence. She hung out with her new husband, and that was all the woman was interested in. Lisa was offended by this attitude, but there was nothing she could do about it. You can't make people love you. A week later, Adriana appeared on Lisa's doorstep again. In her hands, she had a folder with documents. "I don't even know how to tell you. My father checked up on Dave through his channels and found out everything about him. When he was imprisoned, my dad decided to check through his connections on you, Dolores," Adriana said, holding out the documents to the surprised woman. "Me? Is it because I taught Lisa how to read hands?" "I don't know. My father flew to Germany, had a checkup there. What Lisa said was confirmed. He's not sick, there's nothing wrong with him, and surgery would ruin him by making him an invalid. Lisa, you saved my dad. but he doesn't believe in such things. He thought you two had some kind of connection. It's crazy, but he thought his business rivals were poisoning him and trying to bring him to his grave. Did you have that information? He's become paranoid recently. That theory even scared me. Father ran you both and found out a very interesting thing." Adriana held out to Lisa and Dolores the dossiers collected on them. "Lisa was born to a 16-year-old girl, and you, Dolores, were that girl. You look alike, and that may explain your gift for chiromancy. You both have it, like mother and daughter's siblings." Adriana turned to Dolores. She was shocked, cried, and began to hug Lisa, who was even more confused. She started calling her mother. "Why didn't you tell me I was adopted?" she asked instead of greeting. A heavy sigh was heard on the other end. "Why should I? I raised you. My husband and I couldn't conceive, but I didn't want children, and my husband really wanted one. Your father, Lisa, was the one who got up at night, and he raised you. Me too, of course, but I never liked children. I can't help it. It's just the way I was born. But we raised you, we fed you. You don't have to dig into it. By the way, how did you find out?" she asked. Lisa realized that she had to tell her. For the first time in a long time, her mother was interested in something. Lisa talked to her for a long time and then came to Dolores. "It's going to be difficult for me to call you Mum," she said. "I know, but for me, it will be easy to call you a daughter." Dolores hugged her wordlessly. From that day on, as the lines on Dolores's palm said, her life went uphill. She was finally reunited with her daughter, and soon she met a good man. She fortune-told him in the square and saw his unhappy fate. He was raising a teenage daughter alone. His wife cheated him, took all his money, left him for another man. They began to meet often, go for walks, talk about everything in the world. Meanwhile, Lisa's life was getting better too. She was promoted at work and became the head of the department. She became very close to Adriana again, as if those years had never happened. Adriana took her friend to the best clinic in the capital, where she had plastic surgery. The young woman took all her savings and corrected the mistake of the past. Lisa became a different person. While rehabilitation was underway, they lived with Adriana's cousin Eric. He had his own apartment there and a small business. He instantly fell in love with Lisa and began to court her. She too took a liking to the guy, and now they are preparing for the wedding. Adriana, on the other hand, is licking her soul wound. She is still worried about her failed marriage. It's hard to learn to trust people after such a thing, but she is glad that her best friend will be a real sister to her by marrying her brother.